welcome to another Math Mayhem with Mr. Ballot. Today we're going to tackle a statistics standard, which is box plots. And box plots are another way we can visually represent data. One of the many ways we can do that. So we're going to talk about and break down what each part of our box plot is, and then we're going to actually go through an example where we're going to be creating a box plot. Okay, but really importantly, before we get to that example, is we have to kind of understand what can we use a box plot for, and what do all of these parts in our box plot represent, right? Okay, so let's just go left to right, right? And we're going to start with this guy all the way here where this first arrow is, right? And we have this little point here, little dot here on 25. Well, what could that possibly represent? Well, that is our lowest point, right? It's our lowest data value. So we call that our minimum. Okay, your minimum value is what you plot with a dot all the way on the left-hand side. Okay, this second line, we introduce these words quartiles. Right? We talked about them a little bit when we talked about finding IQR, or interquartile range. So this is where we see those quartiles start to be plotted. So this first line here, this guy is Q1, or quartile 1. And what quartile 1 is, I'll do this in a different color. Quartile 1 is the median of the lower half, right? It's the median of the lower half. So remember, when we find our median in our data set, remember it splits it into two halves? Well, this mark here is that median of the lower half, is that Q1, or quartile 1. Okay, this middle guy here, well, if I have quartile 1 here, this must be quartile 2. And quartile 2, well, that's your median of the original data set. So the median of the data set, right? Of your original data, that is Q2. That's what you plot with this line here. And then this guy here, if this is Q1, this is Q2, well, this must be Q3, or quartile 3. And if this is the median of the lower half, this is the median of the entire data set. This is the median of the upper half. Okay? And then your last guy way out here, obviously if this is your minimum, all the way on the left, all the way on the right, this is going to be your maximum. Okay, and those are the 5 parts of your box plot, right? You have your minimum, your Q1, your Q2, your Q3, your maximum. We call these 5 guys our 5-number summary, because that is what a box plot graphs out for us, our 5-number summary. Our minimum, our Q1, our Q2, Q3, and our maximum. Okay, and that, again, those 5 things are called our 5-number summary. So now that we know the parts of these guys, it really becomes important to know, okay, how do I graph a box plot just given a data set? And we're going to talk about that now. So if we look at our data set here, the first thing we got to do is we have to find that 5-number summary, right? We need to find that minimum. We need to find Q1. We need to find our median, or Q2. We need to find Q3, and we need to find our maximum. Once we have these things, then we can start talking about making a box plot from them. So let's start talking about our minimum. Okay? Looking at my data set, I've already put it in order for you. That was nice this time. I've put it in order for you from least to greatest. So my minimum, or my smallest number, well, is 5. Okay? I'm just doing the easy ones first before we start breaking them down, right? So let's jump to our maximum, because that's another easy one to spot right away, and that's 23. Now let's talk about these guys in the middle. All right, let me get a different color here, blue, perfect. So let's jump to our median, because in order to get our Q1 and Q3, we need to split the data up. We need to find our median. So let's see how many numbers we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have an even set of numbers, meaning I'm going to be left with 2 numbers in the middle, and then I have to average those numbers to find my median. So let's see, if I cross out, I get rid of my largest and my smallest, I do it again, I do it again, I do it again, and now I'm left with this 12 and 14. Right? I'm left with 2 numbers for my median. So again, if you're left with 2 numbers for your median, you need to go ahead and find the average of them. Okay, so 12 and 14, 12 plus 14 is 26, divided by 2. My median is 13. So I'll write that in for my median, 13. So now remember, this median splits that data up. So that 13 is really between this 12 and 14. So I'm just going to draw a line here, because that is where my data is now split, right? So now for Q1, I'm focusing on these 5 numbers, and for Q3, I'm focusing on these 5 numbers. So my Q1, I have 5, 8, 10, 10, 12. So let's find the median of those. I get rid of my 5 and my 12. My 8 and my 10, and I'm left with just 10 as my Q1. And my Q3, I have 14 and 23, 15 and 20 I get rid of, and I'm left with 19. There's my 5-number summary. I have all 5 numbers that I need to plot on my dot plot. So now comes the fun part of creating the dot plot. So I'm going to draw my line, my graph, and we want to make sure our minimum and our maximum are represented on here. So I have to be able to get from 5 to 23. So I'm going to start with 5. Okay. And I'm going to try to get all the way, let's go a little higher than our maximum. Let's try to get to 25 so that we're even 5s. And I'm just going to mark off tick marks and just label every 5 tick marks. So let's see, 5, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9, here's 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, here's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, there's 20, and then 21, 22, 23, 24, and then there's 25 already for us. Beautiful. Okay, so I've set up my number line for my dot plot, and now all I have to do is I have to plot these guys. So our minimum and our maximum, I'm just going to do this in purple real quick, our minimum and our maximum are plotted with dots, and I'm just going to put them next to them so that we see that, right? Our minimum and maximum are always plotted with dots. Our Q1, our median, and our Q3 are plotted with lines like this. Okay, so that is what it's going to look like on our box plot, excuse me. So if we do that, and I'll do that in now, let's do this in green. My minimum is 5, so I'm going to plot my first dot at 5. My Q1 is 10, so I'm going to go to 10 and I'm going to draw a straight line down. My median is 13, so I'm going to go to 13 and again draw a straight line down. Q3 is 19, straight line, and then maximum is 23 with a dot again. So I'm going to go to 23 and plot a dot. Now what you're going to do is you're going to connect all of those lines with a box. That's going to create a rectangle. Right? And it might not be perfect, so just line it up. Again, it doesn't need to be the prettiest thing. Okay, there's our box. And now you're going to connect these dots to make your dot plot. I'm sorry, your box plot. I keep mixing those up, those words. And that is how you create a box plot. So what's really important about box plots too to know is really what does this represent, right? Because we have 4 sections here, right? We have this section, we have this section, we have this section, and we have this section. Right, we have 4 different sections there of our box plot. Well, each of those sections actually represents 25% of our data. And this makes sense because if you think about it, our median, right, this median of 13, we're talking about the middle of a data set, well, that means that's 50% of our data, right? So from here over should be 50% of my data, and it is, right? 25 plus 25 is 50, so 50%, and then after my median is 50% too. So when we look at box plots, it's like, for example, like let's say I had that number 19 where my Q3 is. Well, I can say that 75% of my data comes before 19. Right? Because if here's 19, I have 25%, 25%, 25%. That's 75%. And then after 19, only 25% of my data comes after 19. And it makes sense because if you look up at our original data, right, before 19 is the boatload of my data. Right? I only have 2 numbers after 19. Meanwhile, I have all of these guys before 19. So that makes sense. Okay, so box plots tell us a lot of things. It helps us find that 5-number summary very easily, helps us find our quartiles easily, helps us find our minimum maximum easily. It's also really helpful when we want to figure out, well, how many kids or how many points or whatever the subject is. Let's say these were points, right? If I want to figure out, well, how many points did my basketball team score in a game? Well, I know 75% of my kids scored less than 19 points. Only 25% of them scored more than 19 points. So it really helps us easily break down the data that way too, to see where most of our data lies. And that really helps us when we start talking about distribution of data, which will be in a later video. But for now, this is how you create box plots. This is your 5-number summary, and that is box plots in a nutshell. If you have any questions or comments, put them below. But until next time, have a good day, guys.